Hello, everybody. Thank you for joining me. Today, it's 10 years to the day since Xi Jinping became chairman of the Chinese Communist Party. And as you know, over those 10 years, he's consolidated his position. So now that he's almost ruling China as a dictatorship. And he has an interesting background. He grew up the son of a very highly ranked Chinese politician. His father was vice premier for a while, but he was on the liberal wing of the party. And so when the Cultural Revolution came along in 1966, his father was picked out, targeted, paraded through the streets, beaten, and thoroughly humiliated. This 15-year-old child had to watch this happen, and he himself was targeted because of his relationship with his father. He was once attacked by a group of Red Guards who chased him, but he managed to get home, whereupon his mother handed him over because she didn't want to be the victim of their violence. Here's somebody who must have felt very much alone, very vulnerable, very insecure, and humiliated. He was sent by the leaders of the Cultural Revolution to be re-educated and spent 7 years out in the rural part of China, up in the northwest, doing very hard, back-breaking work. When he returned to Beijing, he enrolled in the university, and his qualifications were entirely that he'd done this 7 years of rural work, not that he had any academic qualifications. So when he became joined the higher ranks of the Chinese governing party, he had this, again, a continuing sense of inferiority because he didn't have their intellectual ability, and this vulnerability that he'd felt as a child seemed to stay with him. He wrote of that experience, "I hated being bullied." Well, you wonder why somebody who's experienced humiliation and vulnerability and being bullied like that promulgates the same kind of activity against other people in order to sustain his power, but it's not uncommon. But what it made me realize as I thought about his history was how important it is not to humiliate people, not to make people feel inferior, not to add to their sense of vulnerability, but to build people up and make them stronger in themselves. Because the real strength that I think we want people to have is a strength that comes from self-confidence and from feeling secure. There is a kind of strength that comes out of vulnerability, but it tends to be violent, it tends to be aggressive, it tends to hurt others. The strength we want comes from people who feel good in themselves and can afford to be generous. And so I think, as I am careful how I treat people, particularly younger people, I want to be aware that anything that puts them down or contributes to any sense of inferiority they might have might be contributing to an adult later in life whose antisocial behaviour brings hurt to other people through their own insecurities.